This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN.Network. And joining me right now is Neil Sweeney. He is the founder and CEO of Killi Ltd. It's a publicly traded company. I got two symbols for you: MYID on the TSX Venture and MYIDF on the OTCQB. Neil, good to see you, man. How you doing?
Great. Nice to see you again.
It's good to see you too. So last time we chatted, last interview that we published was last year on August 31st, 2020. We got a lot to update. I mean, we got a full year updates. And I mean, the company just announced the other day on September 9th, we're recording this on September 14th, that we're changing the name. I mean, we got a lot going on. So I'd love to get that update, some highlights the last 12 months.
Yeah, a year in COVID is like dog years, right? So you take the year of COVID and you kind of compound that with a year in a small cap, and it's basically a new century. So a lot's happened over the past year. I think you nailed it. We're changing the name from Killi to Reklaim, Reklaim with a K, not a C. The ticker symbols stay the same, so no change for you or any of the investors. And you know, I've been foreshadowing this for quite some time. The feeling for us has always really been that we felt that in the market today, there's really no destination for consumers to go anywhere, to see their data, to opt out, to be compensated, so on and so forth. We felt that the lack of a consumer-facing brand in the data market was a big gap. And we felt that what we did as a company and as a mission was not really aligned with our brand. And we wanted our name and our mission to really kind of align. So this notion of changing the name to Reklaim is really based on this idea that you as a consumer can reclaim what's yours. You can reclaim your data. Once you've reclaimed your data, you can then decide what you'd like to do with it. That optionality is really up to you. So what I always say to everybody, a rebrand is not a new logo and a coat of paint. It's a lot of work. It goes all the way through the product. But I think for us, what we've really done is we wanted to align that aesthetic, but we've also incorporated really all the learnings over the past year as to, is our mission, still, in line? Are we providing consumers with what they want? And so I think what you've got here with Reklaim is sort of this leveling up, not only from an aesthetic and a brand, but kind of this new foundation from which we're then kind of pushing forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, Killi your data doesn't have the same ring as Reclaim your data, right? Like,
yeah, well, in all honesty, as some of your viewers might know, I mean, Killi was incubated inside of my last company, and that's sort of the Ukrainian doll thing where we say internally, we do what's next. When the next becomes the now, we move on to the next, right? Like that's our mission. We're very good at commercializing and incubating technology of what's on the edge and what's coming. This notion of kind of the changing data economy, which is a $400 billion market, we saw this change and we wanted to stick our toe in and start to build this. But when we first started this company or this product, it was tiny inside of the larger parent company. We sold that parent company a year ago at the beginning of COVID, and then have really doubled down on this company Killi. So it was never really the intention to kind of keep it as Killi. But there was a time where we're like, well, we're going to get to it. We're going to change it. And then when we decided to change it, again, it's not just like you get out of bed and you flick the light switch on and the new logo is there. It's a lot more work than people kind of realize. But anyway, it's out the door. It's being really well received. And, we're pretty excited about the direction it's heading in. Very
cool. So I also want to talk about some other highlights, operational highlights, give us some numbers, what kind of increases or decreases, let's get the wrap there.
Yeah, so we put out a corporate update a couple of weeks ago, and I'd encourage anybody to take a look at that on our investor website. I think all metrics are kind of moving definitely up and to the right. We get it. Everybody has this sort of fixation on revenue. What we did leading up into the beginning of this year was really building out that scale. How many consumers can we get into the product? How much distribution can we get of this data? For us, we're not trying to introduce a completely net new model. People buy data today. Going forward, they have to buy a new source of data really because of the loss of the cookie and the loss of the mobile identifier and some of the changes in privacy. We stand to benefit from that, but only if we're in the platforms that people are currently buying data from, and only if we have scale. And so one kind of is a precursor to the other. We built this tons of scale. So, we've moved from tens of thousands of accounts to hundreds of millions of accounts. We have over 300 million accounts inside of the Reklaim ecosystem now. We've moved from virtually no distribution to being in 15 of the largest global distribution platforms. And these platforms are kind of like the Walmarts and the Costcos of the data ecosystem. It's where the Fortune 500 go to actually buy their data. Procter & Gamble goes to these companies to buy their data. So having your data in those platforms at scale gives you a level set and an opportunity to transact. Not surprisingly, if you look at kind of Q2 of last year compared to where we were this year, you've got an 1,100% increase in sales. So, I mean, again, it's not something that just kind of happens overnight. We built the scale, we built the distribution, now we're building the revenue. You know, we're excited about where things are going with the product because, you know, quite honestly, we feel that we can really drive a lot of revenue sort of specifically on that base and distribution that we have, even if we didn't add one net new profile or one net new kind of distribution partner. We think that it's kind of up and to the right from here.
Very good. So there was one press release that you put out, or the company, you part of course, but the company put out on June 30th, 2021 about allowing consumers to reclaim Facebook data. And I wanted to zone on this because I think this would be an interesting example for those that don't understand how the platform really works. Like what does this mean and how can people like myself reclaim data through your platform?
Yeah, and I think this is really a manifestation of sort of one of the big learnings of the company. So, you know, for people who haven't started companies or built products, there is this misconception that, you know, what you step off the curb with and what you finish with are the same product. That's a fallacy. It's not true. I think the best people, the best product producers are those that step off the curb knowing that what they start with is not what they're going to finish with, but that they have the confidence that the market and their ability to iterate through the market is going to get them to what's referred to as product market fit. If you look at what we've done as a business, we started with Killi, now we're Reklaim, but that really sort of illustrates kind of this evolution. We started off as basically a survey company. You should get paid for your data. Therefore, you come in, you answer a survey, congratulations, you've been paid. As we iterated over the past year, what we kind of realized is the problem in the marketplace compensation for data? I think it's a problem, but we think compensation really is a byproduct of this notion of access, is that once you have access, should you choose to be compensated, you can do that. And so what we realized was that the bigger issue in the market is that there's 300+ million people in the United States. Those people are powering a $250 billion data market. Every company in the world has access to the data. The only people that don't have access to that data are you and me. So we're the input with no access. It makes no sense. So what we tried to really solve here was, okay, in this $250 billion US market and $400 billion market, let's provide consumers with the ability to come into the platform. You put in a phone number or an email address. We validate who you say you are. And then once you've done that, we will curate all of the available data that we can find on you that is being collected and sold without your explicit consent or knowledge. This is a shocking moment for most consumers because you put in Neil@Killi.io as your email address or at reclaimyours.com. And then for the first time ever, we're showing consumers really all their data. Facebook was another iteration of that. We did that for 320 million Americans first with like all the data that was available on the open web. And then while we were doing that, Facebook got hacked. So when Facebook got hacked, the frustration that I had was a lot of media called me and said, Neil, what do you think about this? I said, well, I mean, it gets hacked. Data gets hacked all the time. What my disappointment with the media is that you're not really providing any solutions for consumers. Me as a consumer, where can I go to find out if I'm part of that hack? Facebook didn't tell you, by the way. It's bad. So I'm like, where can I go to find out? And if I do find out if I'm part of the hack, how do I find out what data has been hacked? So what we did is that we actually brought the solution of unveiling data from data brokers to Facebook and basically said, look, if you come to, at that point, the Killi environment, same idea, you put in your phone number, we will query that specifically against the data that was actually leaked from Facebook. And now for the first time ever, you as a consumer, not only you can tell if you were part of that hack, but you can actually see that data. Once you can see that data, you can then append that to your Reklaim profile along with all the other data, creating one kind of more holistic view of yourself. So we thought that was pretty progressive. Nobody else in the world has really done this notion of providing people access to data that's available on the open web, nor have they done that with data from Facebook. And so you'll see increasingly more of that. Where we've landed from the beginning of the year till now is, if you're American, 1 out of every 2 Americans that come into the Reklaim profile or platform right now can find data on themselves. That's not an immaterial statistic. That's a massive statistic, and it's a service that no other company is really providing. So we're excited about what's happening in Facebook. That Facebook reveal we thought was an important step in our overall iteration or evolution.
Very good. All right. So my last question before I let you go here today, from what you can tell us, what would you say are the 1 to 2 things investors should pay attention to for the rest of 2021 going into 2022 from the company?
Well, I would say investors should pay attention to the fact that we're doing things in this $400 billion data market that nobody else on the planet is doing. I think we're miles ahead of really anybody else in the space, and the entire $400 billion data market needs to migrate to a data market that requires consent. We think we're the most compliant ecosystem of consented data in the world. So that's the first one. I think, you can continue to look at kind of those core metrics of how many platforms is the company distributed in, and is it continuing to move up? How many clients are they working with? Is that continuing to move up? What's the revenue? Is that continuing to move up? I think from a corporate update that we put out, we're confident that all 3 of those metrics are going to go up and to the right. And the other thing I would just say is that we believe that there's this iteration on privacy as well. And I think, over the next kind of coming months, not only do we believe the revenue, the distribution, the clients will continue to iterate, but we think that there's this additional tier of privacy, knowing that some people don't want to sell data and that some people want to protect data. We have a solve for that. If 30% of the population or 40% of the data wants to see their data, reclaim their data, but not want to sell their data, but wants to protect their data and limit the amount of data that is leaking from the various different devices, how do they do that today? We have a solve for that that's kind of coming as well, which we think is going to be super exciting.
Very good. Well, Neil, with that, where can our audience go and find more information on Killi /Reklaim?
Yeah, so go to www.reclaimyours. We're on all the social channels, obviously underneath that same handle. And you can reach me at either Killi or Reclaim Yours. I get all the emails. So either when investor relations at reclaimyours.com, as well as if you want to find more information specifically as it relates to the stock, the cap structure, et cetera, it's all there.
Very good. And by the way, that is Reklaim spelled REKLAIM, yours.com. Neil, always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for joining me today. Good luck, stay safe, and I look forward to our next update.
Okay, man. Thanks so much for having me. Take care.
Thank you.